Okay, now we're ready for our next card for our Focus Friday class. We're going to start out with the base, which is a 4 by 5 1/4, and we're going to make some pencil marks at 2 inches and 2 5/8 inches. Our DSP is going to be a 4 by 2 5/8. Then we're going to take our trim piece from the die, and we're going to go from our pencil markings on the scallop side to the pencil markings. We're going to cut. So we need to take this to the die cutter, and then we cut in both directions, and there was a little bit that I had to trim off the center there. Then I'm going to take my petal pink and a sponge. I'm going to color my designer series paper. I'm going to color it heavier towards the top. So you see when you sponge color on, you kind of go in a swirling motion. I think I want a little more color. Okay. Then I'm going to take my stamp and stamp a peony in petal pink on Whisper White paper. And then using Pear Pizzazz, I will cut out or stamp some leaves. Then I cut those out. I'm ready to stamp my sentiment, which I have placed on my Stamparatus already. The sentiment is "My thoughts are with you." Then I will take my card base. I'm ready to assemble. With my multi-purpose liquid glue, I'll first adhere the designer series paper. And then the top portion, the same multi-purpose glue. Nice thing about this glue is it gives you a little time to adjust and get your paper perfectly straight. I'm going to use some dimensionals for the flowers. But first I will put glue dots on my leaves. Make sure you got the glue dot on there. There we go. You can hear my dog in the background playing with the toy. Okay. So there you go. Using glue dots on the flower, you can't see it too well, so move it over so you can see it better. Pulling out my smaller glue dots, or Stampin' dimensionals. We have 2 different sizes. It makes it pretty quick and easy. Although you can take the larger ones and just cut them in half. There we go. All right, that's our next card. Okay, ready for the next card, in which I have stamped onto Whisper White with basic gray, and then I'll go and die cut it. There you go. Looking at the paper, I was trying to figure out if possibly I could actually get 2 out of 1 piece of paper. If I scooted it down, I probably could do that. Then our card front is going to be out of petal pink, and then I have some vellum, and we're going to take the vellum and run it through the embossing machine. Now there was kind of an issue. The paper stuck, so I found that you kind of had to bend the folder back and forth in order to get the vellum off the paper. Be careful with it. It wants to stick real good in there. It's really pretty. Then I die cut for an accent with a basic gray cardstock, and I'm using the die that came from the stitched nested labels. I'm going to add a little color to my peony. I'm just taking my Stampin' Up marker, and I'm just going where the shadowing part is, just to give it a hint of color. This is petal pink. Just kind of where the shadowy areas are. I'm going to use Pear Pizzazz. See where the markings are. It tells you where the brush end is and where the point or pen end is. Just adding a little bit of color to the leaves. Okay, now I'm going to emboss. You use your embossing buddy and Versamark for my sentiment. Love and thanks to a dear friend. I'm using my white embossing powder. I just like to dip it in, and you gotta kind of shake it off a bit, and then you take it to your heat tool. You can refill your Versamark. We do have refills in case you run out. Okay, now I'm ready to assemble. I'm going to use these glue dots that came with a paper pumpkin. Vellum is really tricky. A lot of times you can see the adhesive through the vellum, so you got to be clever about where you place your glue dots or which particular glue you use. Now sometimes these dots are really convenient, but today they wanted to give me a hard time because of course I'm recording. So once I get these dot covers off, we'll continue. Place my vellum on top. And position it and press it down real good. Then I'm going to use tear and tape because it's pretty strong for my gray accent. Using my take your pick tool to make little flaps or tabs so I can position it well. I'm going to put it towards the top, towards the right side, not right in the middle. Up and to the right is where I want that accent piece. And then to decide what kind of glue, I'm just going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue here for the sentiment to put right across the flower. And then I want to use dimensionals on my flower. And you can see the multi-purpose glue coming through, so I will be wiping that off the best I can. Okay, then figure out how to position the flower on top. That looks good. So go ahead and take off the backing to the adhesive or the dimensionals. That looks good. Okay. Now, using my tear and tape, like I always, start in the center, go to the right. Start in the center, go to the right. This is for me to make my tabs so that I can perfectly place onto my card base. Using my take your pick tool, lifting up the edge, the corner, so that I can make my tabs. Excuse me. By having the little tabs, it allows me to position it properly without having the whole front stick, and so I can be sure it's right where I want it before I pull the tabs off and it's really stuck on there well. There you go. All right, now for our next card, we're going to stamp with black. We're going to do 2 flowers. And we're going to do 6 leaves. I'm going to use my Stampin' Blends. These are alcohol markers to color these with. I use So Saffron in the center, and then this is the new color, Magenta Madness. I had some problems at first, but I got it going, so I didn't want you to sit here through coloring them all the way through. So anyway, here we go. We're the marker's working well, so I cover the whole base with a lighter color, and then I'll come in with a darker to accent or to give depth. And the nice thing about these stamps is it lets you know where the shadowing should go, so I just follow that guide with the darker color. You can see how the marker is different. You can see that it's wet. It's leaving like a trail. It's way different than the watercolor markers. There's a learning curve here. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the leaves, and I'm going to hopefully figure out how to speed this up. Okay, then we're going to work on the sentiment piece. I've already stamped it, and then I ran it through the with the embossing folder. We're going to put the color on with a sponge, and this is Balmy Blue. And now it's time to assemble. I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of the sentiment. I'm going to put it up towards the top, towards the right. And then get all my leaves ready with their glue dots on the back. And then I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals for the flowers. Now it's easy to position the leaves because they've already got the glue dots on them. Okay, there's the 4 cards. The first one, the second one, the third one, and then the last one. 4 cards with 1 stamp bundle. But I decided that this card, it didn't look right. So I want you to see that you can take your scissors, gently slide them in between the paper and the dimensions, and you can cut the dimensionals in half. This is how I'm going to remove this and redo it. I felt like it needed something more. I didn't like how it looked. So I'm gonna take it apart, and it's not that difficult. You just cut those dimensionals in half, and then they kind of just roll. Take your finger, and from the heat of your finger, kind of with the adhesive, they kind of roll off. So I'm redoing. I'm going to take those off, and I think this is much better with a blue, balmy blue background. So redid it. Thank you so much for joining my Focus Friday, where we make 4 different cards with 1 stamp bundle with the peony dies and prized peony stamp set. Thanks so much.